Some of you will recognise the theme of Game of Thrones there, the HBO fantasy drama shown here on Sky Atlantic. It's enormously popular, and because so many people around the world watch it, more people are exposed to the invented languages used within it than to many real languages. Dothraki, for example, spoken by the nomadic horsemen, horse people, it's not just a few gibberish sounds, it is a language, bits of which are now heard by more people than Welsh, Gaelic and Gaelic combined, apparently. It's a fascinating business. The language was invented by David Peterson, who's president of the Language Creation Society, and who's on a Skype line, I hope, from Los Angeles. Good morning to you, David.
Good morning to you.
Just tell us about your role in writing this language. So they came to you and said, look, we want a language for our Game of Thrones series. Can you knock one together?
It was a little bit more complicated than that. Specifically, they contracted the Language Creation Society. And then the Language Creation Society put out a call to all the language creators, primarily online. And then we basically all competed against one another, each putting together our own idea of what the Dothraki language should look like for, at that time, the pilot of Game of Thrones. And after a 2-round process of judging, I came out the other end.
You came out the other end. Okay, just give us, how well can you speak Dothraki? Are you quite good at it? Can you, if I just say a sentence, will you be able to say it in Dothraki?
Was and her was look Dothraki.
Which means
so that means no, I can't speak Dothraki.
How know that? How complete is the language though? I mean, what's the vocabulary? Is it 500 words? Are we talking 100 words or?
It's about 3,700 words.
3,700. Oh, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot for a created language, I think, on average, but it's not a lot for, a language per se. A language like English is reputed to have about 1 million words.
No, but come on, yeah, I mean, hundreds of millions of people speak English. So why do they then come to you and say, will you give us the whole language with a few thousand words? Why do they do that and not just have the little snatches in the program spoken in a kind of gibberish, just string together random sound?
Well, what was interesting to me is that I discovered much later on, in fact, that they did try to put together gibberish at first. They actually just filled in gibberish for the Dothraki lines for the pilot, and they tried it out, and they thought it sounded just awful. So it was, for them, for David Benioff and Dan Weiss, it was really an artistic choice. They thought, we need to get somebody in here that can really, that knows what they're doing here, so that it actually sounds like a language and not just like something we made up.
And of course, these fantasy dramas, they have fans who are pretty into their details, aren't they? And if someone used a word in one scene and then it came out a different sound in another scene, they would probably notice.
Yeah, I was one of those people early on when I was watching, Star Wars way back, in the early 80s, thinking, what the heck? Princess Leia just said the same thing twice there, and it meant something different the second time. How is that possible?
But, how long does it take to write a language? Because it's not a business I can confess, not a business I know much about.
Well, it depends. Obviously, when you have deadlines, you got to work a little faster, but. For me, I think it takes between 3 and 4 months to really get the grammar stabilized. And thereafter, once it's just a matter of fleshing out the vocabulary, it could take pretty much the rest of your life or forever, whenever you want to stop. But I'd say, a good 4 or 5 months to get something that you can really work with and start translating dialogue into.
Well, that's pretty, takes me a lot longer than that to learn the basics of a language, but that is absolutely fascinating. David Peterson, thank you, and good luck with the language there. And maybe people will start speaking it as well as appreciating it. And John, you're going to introduce Gary in Dothraki.
Yeah, but not in Dothraki.
No, we've got it here. We've got it on the.
Oh, we've got it.
No, sorry, you haven't.
No, they haven't given it to me.
No, there we are.
There we are. So, as in loy villa Jerosham Gary.
That was you doing Welsh.
Which means now for some sport with Gary.
Okay, here comes the gibberish bit.